New Jersey Devils team reporter Amanda Stein accompanies me on today's episode. We're going to talk about her career. She's going to answer some of the questions that you sent in. And of course, we're going to talk about the Devils. There's so much to discuss with Amanda, so let's get right into it. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed him. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
All righty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils writer for Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. I am joined alongside a very special guest. She's a Montreal, Quebec native, and you might recognize her on New Jersey Devils television, giving insight into the Devils locker room. She is extremely well known on Devils Twitter for her up-to-dates on the team and also her fabulous handwriting when illustrating the starting lineup. It's the incredible Amanda Stein. Amanda, this has been a long time coming.
It has.
Finally here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Well, thank you for being patient with me, and thank you for that amazing introduction. That was very kind. I know you and I got to know each other a little bit when you were in New Jersey a couple months ago, and so I appreciate your ability to work with my schedule, as erratic as it may be sometimes, and I'm glad that we've finally figured it out.
It's all good, and my fans are really excited that you're here. So I had them ask you some questions, but before we get into that, I just want to sort of get some background information about yourself. So where did hockey begin for you?
I mean, it's sort of that cliche. You mentioned it there. I'm from Montreal, Quebec. So I'm born and raised in Canada, born and raised in a city that is basically driven by hockey culture, by the hockey team. We even have a university program, not a program, but a university course dedicated solely to the history of the Montreal Canadiens and the way it has affected Quebec culture. So I did not take that course, but I should. But so that's really where it started for me, was growing up in that environment where at home in Montreal, that's basically what sort of drives the community. I knew I always wanted to do something in the entertainment business. Particularly, my first dream was really to be sort of like a talk show host, and then merging two loves together kind of just worked. I mean, you get it, Trey, right? Like you know what it's like to merge a passion with a hopeful job. So that's basically what I did. And being from Quebec, it's really split both English and French, although it's majority French, but there was really only one English radio station. We didn't even have like a real sports TV station. So really radio was the only option for me at that point out of university. And so I applied to that station for an internship, interned there. They had the rights they still do, to the Montreal Canadiens broadcasts, and kind of snowballed from there. And all these years later, somehow I've ended up as an authority on the New Jersey Devils. I don't know if I ever thought I'd be that growing up, but I'm very happy that I am.
Yeah, I mean, you're well known throughout the Devils discourse. Like I said, you're well known for your handwriting, but I want to ask you this. What was like your big break? You talked about getting into the scene, but
Yeah.
what was like that first opportunity where it was just like, this was just the pinnacle moment of the start of your career?
It's really interesting because I think I can sort of pinpoint a couple of aspects, because nothing is ever fluid, right? Like everything is sort of fluid, where it's up and down and nothing's ever just a direct line. So obviously having my first internship with that radio station, which is now TSN 690, so a branch of TSN, which is the ESPN equivalent in Canada. But when I joined, they weren't TSN at that point. They were a whole other sports network. And so when I joined there, obviously that was a big deal, just because it was really the only English sports radio station. And I wasn't really doing what I'm doing now. I was, just trying to get my foot in the door. And I remember one of my biggest breaks was the girl who was covering the Montreal Canadiens at the time. She was sick. They needed someone to go out to the practice facility to cover practice. and they had no one else. And so because I had been around, because I had really honed a lot of different skills, and they trusted me, they're like, all right, well, we need someone to do it. So we're going to have to ask you to go do it. And it was amazing. Like, it was like that moment was really a dream come true just for that one time, right? I was like, wow, if I like only go in the locker room, or if I only do these interviews with these players once, I've done what I've really set out in a very small way. But from there, that kind of snowballed. And then I would say, Trey, that the thing that really changed the trajectory for me, and it has nothing to do with what I did, um, our radio station, which was then called the Team 990, was purchased by TSN. And when TSN purchased the station, it really opened up the types of people that we were working with, the like the elite of the elite hockey media in Canada. And that kind of snowballed from there to allow me to really be able to branch out and get known by a lot more people. And that's really, you know, I've told you sometimes, like, the luck is the most important part. And that's really what it was for me, being in the right place at the right time. And from there, again, like a lucky chance, one of the girls that I had met covering the Canadians, she covered the Philadelphia Flyers. I met her once, and she actually ended up working for the Devils at one point. And when this job opened up, she had thought about me. We had, we'd been like good friends on Twitter and sort of texting back and forth, but I really only met her like twice in person. And she thought of me, and it kind of snowballed from there. So it's a good lesson on being in the right place at the right time, working hard. And sometimes the biggest opportunities aren't necessarily the ones that you create for yourself. They're just, ones that sort of end up in your lap because of the hard work that you've done.
Right. And to go off on that, because you talked about like how you were given that opportunity and kind of snowballed into something bigger.
Yeah.
I definitely can attest for that, because during my time with the Devils over my winter break, meant to be a one-off thing, but I was like, wait a minute, why don't I just try to follow up and see like if I can get more? And and I know this I'm not trying to make it about myself, but it's like, that opportunity just like it became something bigger. And now, I've been entrusted to go into the Zoom meetings or,
Well, I think that that's a really good example, right? It's about, and like, I think the other thing is that I tell a lot of people who ask me questions about it is like, never be afraid to ask, because, and I know it's like that cliche, like the worst someone could tell you was no, right? And like, sorry, like,
respond.
Yeah, or not respond, or like, we did what we could, I'm really sorry. But even just by you being in that in the environment over your holiday break, that's how we really connected. And I told you this, and I want your fans to know this too, is that like, I was really impressed with the way you came into the locker room. And it's a tough thing for someone to do, come into a locker room for the first time. It can be very intimidating. But you were excellent. Not everybody has the guts to come into a locker room for the first time and actually ask questions. A lot of people don't, and a lot of people take a long time to do that. And that's also their prerogative. I'm not like saying that that's not the way to do things, but I was really impressed with your confidence and the way you talk to the players, and also your etiquette, in the sense that, like, you waited till everyone was done, and I thought that was just you really understand what the process is. And I applaud you for that, because I know it's not easy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I had some help. My first day, Christy Flannery was able to tell me like what the process is like.
Yep.
Like, in terms, like I know that MSG and yourself, you guys got to ask the questions first. And a lot of people don't realize how hard it is, because you guys get first dibs. So when people say like, why couldn't you have asked this? I'm like, because it's already been asked.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a side of it that people don't really see, and that's to no one's fault, right? Like, that's to no one's fault at all. But right. No, I know, I wanted you to know that I was very impressed with the way you handled yourself in your first go around.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, let's get into some questions. So you grew up in Montreal, Quebec, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I can't believe I haven't asked you this. Do you
I do
speak?
speak French. Yes, I'm fully
I,
bilingual.
I did not know that. First, I don't speak French. My brother does. I should have asked him to give pointers. But okay, so the first question comes from actually a good friend of mine. He goes by the name Jersey Joe, and he's appeared on my show quite frequently. But he wants to know, like, how did you not only learn wonderful English, but learn about the Devils before being hired? And did you know anything about the Devils prior to the hiring process?
Yeah, I mean, so I think what those who maybe don't understand about Quebec and Canada is that Quebec, yes, is its own sort of little French world, but it is a bilingual province. So English was actually my first language. We just grew up speaking both languages. So at home we speak English, but I can flip back and forth no problem. So it's not so much like I didn't really have to learn English per se or at all really. That was just my main language. It's a weird thing like when you grow up in a culture with multiple languages, you never really think of yourself as learning both languages because they've just like always been with you. You've spoken both languages your whole life. So school was bilingual. It was English and French. So I've spoken both languages my whole life. So that's number one. I didn't have to learn English. I had it pretty much well down before I got here. And then really for the Devils, I mean, again, like when it comes to Canadian hockey culture, yes, like you are obsessed with your particular team, but I think there is a real broad perspective on the league in and of itself. And I think in particular when it comes to the Devils, I had this unique, I don't want to say connection because I didn't have a connection to it at that point, but as someone from Quebec, you have a different understanding of who the Devils are simply because of Martin Brodeur, right? So the greatest goaltender of all time. He's from the community that we grew up in. He's fluently bilingual. He grew up speaking French, and his second language was English, where I was vice versa. But that again is very much to Quebec culture. So I did have a basic understanding and knowledge of who the Devils were strictly through Marty himself, right? And whenever the Devils came to town in Montreal, he would be, the reason why so many people would want to be going to that game, even though he was the opponent, just to see Marty be able to play. And his father actually was he was a photographer for the Montreal Canadiens for many, 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 many years. So the Brodeur family has a very strong connection, in a sense, to yes, the Quebec community, but also the Montreal Canadiens in a very unique way. So for me, that was definitely something that I knew about very strongly. But yeah, you do have to kind of brush up and make sure that you know who's who and what's going on. But ultimately, hockey is hockey, right? Like the game is played in a way that it can translate from every single market. And there's one thing about learning someone's history, but there's another thing in terms of like when you're actively involved in a team. Most of the players that I started with on my first day in 2017 are not with them, are not here anymore. Yes, there are a few, obviously Nico and Jesper, and there are a few who are still here, but it's such a it's ever changing. So I don't think you feel like you need to know everything about the present because when you get there, you're just sort of immersed in it. But definitely the connection through Marty to the Quebec community and culture. You knew a little bit more about the Devils than maybe you did about other teams in the league.
Absolutely. And to go off what you said about the English and French thing, when I went to Nice, France over the summer, I was actually surprised how many Europeans spoke English, kind of thing, because I thought I was going to have to rely on my brother to like be my translator or whatever case might be. But it was like if I told someone, hey, I don't speak French or whatever, they were like, oh, okay, you speak English. I was like, wow, that's impressive that they know English, French, or I know some people from Sweden, at my school. It's just like they can flip from.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very universal language. You can go many, many places. Like I've traveled a lot of places in the world, and it is definitely a benefit to be able to speak two languages because you sort of give yourself the best opportunity to be able to communicate. with someone in their native language, but certainly, English is all the guys that are in our locker room speak English, even if they're not from here or from Canada.
Yeah, and you talked about just learning as you go. When I first started covering the Devils, it was just like it was a slow process, but as I got used to it, especially learning what they needed, like during the course of the off season, whatever the case might be, it was like
You just adapt, right? Like you just like if you have your solid base of what hockey is and how it's played and sort of the key players, and you put in the work, you'll figure it out. And so I feel just as like I don't feel as confident. It's funny, like I definitely don't feel as confident now talking about the Montreal Canadiens than I would have 8 years ago. And it's just going back to like what I was saying before. It's like there's only 2 players left on that team in Montreal that I covered 8 years ago that are still on the team, and both of them are injured, Carey Price and Brendan Gallagher. So you know what I mean? Like I don't, it's just like it's so ever changing that when you're immersed in it, you just sort of you concentrate on what's in front of you, right? Like, and I think you understand that definitely.
absolutely. So my fans, they want to know, how is your handwriting on the daily line so good? Is that just natural, or did you take classes growing
It
up?
is natural. It is an ability that I've had. I mean, so I always joke, like, so my dad sent me to a private all-girls school for 12 years of my life. And I'm sure, as a someone who comes from a long line of lawyers, I'm pretty sure like the intention was like, oh, she'll come out of this like schooling and want to like continue the family trend, but instead like the one real solid skill I learned from 12 years of private all girls school was good handwriting. So I'm like, oh, sorry about that, Dad, but it is a natural thing for me. It's something that I've always just been naturally good at, is having really, it's funny, it's like it's handwriting, but it's mostly printing, right? Like my printing is, I know it's pretty spectacular, and it kind of took on a life of its own for no reason. Like I didn't do it to like be like, oh, look at me. I was just like, oh, everyone's tweeting the lines the same. This is so boring. Like, well, what can I do to spruce it up a little bit? And I started that in Montreal. That didn't even start here. That started in Montreal. So um so yeah, and it really did take on a crazy life of its own. And I'm happy. Like I love that people like it, and I really enjoy doing it. And it's a skill that is sort of a lost art. So it's nice for me to be able to keep that up, and the fans be entertained and expect it. It's funny, like when it doesn't come, people, where is it? I'm like, oh, it's coming. Hang on, like I have a lot of things to do. But yeah, it's awesome.
Right, because people like me, Ryan Novozinski, James Nichols, or Christy, whatever the case might be, we just like use the lines that are sent to us to say,
Yeah.
like, here's tonight's starting lineup, whatever the case might be. But and it's very impressive that you're able to write it, because I always say my handwriting was better in middle school, because as I gotten older, as I've used computers more or that kind of thing, my handwriting has gotten worse, actually.
Well, I think that that's probably a lot of people, right? Like it is something that you have to continually do. And if you kind of go back to my history of them, I would say that my handwriting has somehow gotten better, even though that's pretty much the only things I write down in person. I take it very seriously. I only use one specific pen, one specific notebook. I'm a little crazy like that, but it is something that I've always done. And I think, you know, I do want to say, and I don't think I've actually ever said this publicly, but I have used my handwriting skills for good, in the sense, obviously like it's fun to do it, but when I was in university, we had one of our students in one of my classes um, was special needs, and the best way for them to be able to have note taking was for someone to share their notes or have notes taken for them, and that is something that I volunteered to do. And so that was part of um, being really lucky to have such great handwriting, and also being able to do something good with it. I've never really said that to anybody, but that's really where keeping up with my handwriting really started. There, scoop for you, Trey.
Awesome. So you heard it here first. Maybe they'll, and who knows, maybe I know you also do some writing as well. Maybe like for the Devil's website, maybe
Yeah.
the story will be revolved around this, and I could say Amanda revealed it first.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, to follow up on that, are you going to start auctioning off your lineups because someone says they deserve to be framed?
I mean, that's awesome. I have considered it. I've considered it in terms of finding some charities that are really close to my heart, particularly mental health. So it might be something that I would potentially look at in the playoffs. Handwritten lineups, I would sign them and maybe I wouldn't say auction them off, but if you make a donation, maybe we'll put something in a draw and we'll go from there. But it is something that has been on my mind. It's something that I think we can use for good. So it is not out of the question. I just don't know if it'll be this year or next year, but it is definitely up there. I don't think I could do every game. I mean, that's like really a lot. Like, that would be a lot. But certainly it is in the back of my mind as something that we could do for some good. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I know you talked about Montreal. I know like when the Devils visit Montreal, you love reuniting with your family members, showing them around the rink, whatever the case might be. But someone asked me, what's your favorite road team to visit besides Montreal?
Yeah, so I mean, Montreal is obviously my favorite just because I do get to see my family, my nephews and my niece, but it really varies, and I think mine's a bit different because I like to do different things. So I love where we stay in San Jose. We stay in this area um, that has some really beautiful boutique shopping, and so when we're on the road and we have time off, it is nice to sort of get away from the group and do things on your own. So I definitely enjoy that. I do love when we go to San Jose. Chicago is really nice too. It's a great city, although it sort of depends what time of year we're there. I'm not gonna lie. And Boston. I mean, they're pretty like other than San Jose, like those are pretty common answers. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, you don't love going to Vegas. I don't. I'm like one of those people, the 1% who if I don't have to go to Vegas, I won't go to Vegas. I don't gamble. I don't smoke cigars. Like I don't do any of those things. So I'm just like terribly bored when we're there because everyone else does. So I'm like always by my, I mean, bored is probably a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm just sort of like, okay, well, all my friends that I work with, they're all gambling and smoking cigars or doing their thing in the casino. Not my scene at all. So that's not on my list. And I will say, I do love Arizona. I definitely do love Arizona. The weather, it's always so nice. And I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you, Trey. I promise. Like I'm not. I actually really do like when we go to Arizona.
Yeah, I was actually bummed to learn that you weren't
Yeah.
I know they were coming ironically they were coming straight from Vegas because it was a Western trip once again.
Yeah.
And I was bummed that you weren't there like in the media press because I was telling you back in New Jersey, like,
Yeah.
we prepared for it to be cramped. And it's just so weird because we weren't in a press box. We were like,
I heard, yeah.
we were like on top of a stand. So just imagine like I had a few people come up to me saying like, oh, you're locked on Devils, which is cool and all, but I think for you it would have been 10 times.
Thank you.
Because it's just like the one thing I've experienced at Mullet Arena is that there's a lot of opposing fans.
I love that. I love that.
Because it's like,
awesome.
It's smaller, you're closer to the rink, that kind of thing. It is a college arena, so
and they're supposed to be there for another couple of years, right? Is that it? Yeah. So I'll catch you there next year. It didn't work out for me this year, but I would like to sort of see what that experience is like. That's for sure.
I mean, it's definitely different because when we're in the press box, like we're a little separate from the fans, kind of thing. So I didn't have any fan interactions when I was at the Prudential Center, but at Mullet, it's just
you are with the fans, right?
You are with the fans. You're on top of the stands, like you're right next to a restaurant, kind of thing. So it's just like it was definitely a different experience, but it was still a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Before we would continue with our conversation with Amanda, I want to tell you guys about Indeed. So no matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applicants that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find the candidates with the right skills and personnel, you need one powerful hiring partner that can help do it all. So get on to Indeed right now. So start hiring right now with $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/lockedon. Term and conditions implied. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And now, we talked about building up the winning team, but why not have some extra money in your pocket? So let me tell you about FanDuel. So the tournament is heating up. March Madness, baby. And now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. So that's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and three-pointers drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And make sure you keep watching March Madness because it's awesome, baby. And speaking of awesomeness, let's get back to our discussion with Amanda Stein. Take it away. All right. So any advice for women wanting to get into the field of sports journalism?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because my advice to women and to men are basically the same thing, because I think that there's an avenue that it isn't gendered when it comes to a lot of these things. It is harder for women. I can speak to that through experience, but the effort to get there has to be the same for both. I think it's like pretty much the hard work is that cliche but very truthful thing. And when it does come specifically to women, what I really try and encourage, and what really worked for me, when I joined the media, I really gravitated towards this woman named Chantal Machabé, and she was basically a pioneer in Quebec for female reporting in hockey coverage. And you just sort of want to make those connections with other women who have done it before you, because they know what it's like. I know what it's been like for me, and there's a lot of guidance that can come along. And it's not linear, right? So everyone will go through their own different experiences, but as a woman, you probably have a very unique set of experiences. And so to have someone that you can talk to or bounce something off of, that you trust, that to me was the most important thing for me in terms of being able to survive, without lack of a better word, right? And when things were tough, when things were really hard, to have someone there who has been through a similar experience, or has some sort of experience that can be slightly connected to what you're experiencing and what you're feeling. Because as much as I absolutely adore my men colleagues, there are a lot of things that we go through that they just cannot identify with, and to no fault of their own, right? Like, it's just, that is the societal structure right now. And those things are starting to break down, but as women, we do go through different things. I mean, I remember a really awful experience in Montreal where there was a reporter who said something to me like, oh, like, the only reason they want you in the locker room and want to talk to you in the locker room is because, like, you're a pretty woman and they'd rather talk to you than to me, or whoever, right? Whatever it was. And that was like such a bummer to hear. I was like, wait, what? I was like, I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like, they should not want to, but like, they should have the respect to talk to me because of like the job I'm doing, not because like you're talking to me versus a man. And that really, really bummed me out. And so I felt really fortunate to be able to have this woman, Chantal, who is now actually head of communications for the Montreal Canadiens. And I went to her. She was a reporter at the time. And I went to her and I said, look, like this person just said this to me. And I was like crying. I was like, this is horrible. It's like, is this what people think? And she says, no, it's not what, the athletes in the locker room think, but it's sadly part of like this culture. And, keep in mind, this was like 16 years ago. So things have certainly changed. But so for me, that is the biggest piece of advice I give women is find another woman in the industry. It doesn't even have to be someone who you're with every day or someone who's covering the same sport, but someone who has slightly shared experiences that you can really lean on. That to me was the biggest difference. And Chantal, 16, 17 years later, is still someone to this day, even though I have, 15 plus years experience, when I still have a crappy day or something that's tough, like she's someone I still go to this day. So that's the biggest piece of advice that I give women in particular.
I think it's always great to have mentors or just someone in your corner, whatever the case might be, because it only just takes one person to really thrust you forward, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like in particular, when it comes to women, like I have a lot of male mentors. Like, don't get me wrong, I have a ton of male mentors that I rely on and I lean on and have always. But there is something very unique as a woman to also having an important woman model, because they've walked basically in the same footsteps that you have, that unfortunately or fortunately, actually more fortunately, that men haven't had to. It's just the way it is. Like I'm not going to make any excuses for it. It's just the way it is.
Hey, it's a cutthroat industry, and sometimes you're going to run into people who don't want you there, but at the same time, I think you can attest for me on this is like, I'm you all you have to do is just like listen to 5 minutes of my show, or look at some of my work, and you realize like I'm the real deal. And I think I think you can attest to me.
It's important. It is important. Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, so my final question is, we have moments that just stick with us. So whether it was like interviewing someone, maybe it was doing a news segment, or maybe it's an article, what moment sticks out for you as of late covering this Devils team? Because that obviously they're putting on this miraculous season and they're destined to make the playoffs. So like what moment sticks out to you, particularly with this season?
Oh man, I mean, there are a lot. I think can I alter it a little bit? It's less a moment and more a feeling. Is that okay? Can I go with that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Or an accumulation of moments. I think for me, it's just having been with this team since 2017, when Nico first came in the league, when Jesper first came in the league, and then seeing players like Jack enter and Dawson enter, to see everyone hit their stride almost at the same time has been so incredibly rewarding to the rebuild process, if you will. And I guess it sort of culminated in Jesper and Nico hitting 30 goals together. It felt so significant, because this group is now on a trajectory where I think they definitely earned their postseason berth far more than they did in 2017 when they were on the backs of Taylor Hall. And that, not to discredit that, but it just feels very different. So to see everyone hit their stride and pulling in the same direction this year, and it coming to fruition where we're down the stretch of 11 games and 3 points away from clinching the postseason, that to me is the most significant, because it's a testament to patience. It's a testament to hard work for this team. And it's a testament to the rebuild process done properly. And that really, from Tom Fitzgerald to Ray Shero, who got the ball rolling, that's what really started this. And so to be able to feel it all really coming to fruition, where you can see something really bright on the horizon, whether it's this year, next year, whatever. That to me is just, it's just the best. I know that didn't really answer your question, but I think to see everybody hit their stride at the same time has been so rewarding as someone who's been along for the ride in a very different way than they have, but been there, each step of the way.
Absolutely. And, they're great guys to talk to in the locker room as well. Very insightful. I think Jesper and Nico are very soft spoken. And for Jack Hughes, you can always rely on a good soundbite here or there. But yeah, it's just so nice seeing this group grow up and having the pieces around them also develop kind of thing. And, a lot of people I don't think anticipate for Devils to be in this position, but at the same time, they're here and hopefully they maintain it going forward. But it's I know you've been in the locker room way more times than I have, but it's just nice seeing this group grow and develop together as a unit.
It really has. It's been incredible, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the future will be for this team this year, next year, and the years coming forward. And I think that's really, to me, when I think about this season, it's everyone hitting their stride and growing at the same rate, at the same time, and embracing where they are. I think the mentality this year is different than it's been in the past. And I think, if you want to talk about a specific moment, it's really hearing a lot of the guys in interviews, like a lot of those core young pieces being like, we're sick and tired of what just happened. Like, the last couple of years, like, we're better than that. We want to be better than that. We know we're better than that. And so for me, the mentality shift of understanding what their mentality shift has been this year, that they expect more of themselves and they're going to push themselves to do more. That's been the biggest change for this group.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for taking the time out your busy day to come on and give some insight to your career, the Devils, and where can everyone find you at? I'm pretty sure they already know, but I have to ask that.
It's all right. Amanda C. Stein, the letter C, on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me there. Reach out anytime via DM or send me a tweet. Happy to, when I see them, answer your questions and all that. Thank you so much, Trey. I'm really appreciative of you being so flexible in my timing, and so I'm so glad that we finally were able to get this done.
Been a long time coming. I've wanted you on the show for a while, and now it's coming to fruition. Thank you so much once again, Amanda.
Thanks, Trey. Have a great day.